Hey guys, it's Saga from TecworkZ, and today we are going to compare the cameras on the OnePlus 8 with the ones on the POCO X2. I know these phones are not directly competing with each other, and there is a big price difference between the two. But a lot of you guys asked me to make this video, so here it is. This is going to be a very detailed video with over 90 image and video samples, so go grab yourself some tea or coffee and make sure you watch it till the end. There is a big price difference between these two, so keep that in mind while we are taking a look at the image and video samples. Let us take a quick look at the cameras on both these phones so you guys get a better idea of what we are dealing with. OnePlus 8 gets a triple camera setup on its back. Primary camera gets a 48 megapixel Sony IMX586 sensor with a 1.75 aperture and a 25mm lens. Next camera gets a 16 megapixel sensor with f2.2 aperture and a 14mm ultra wide angle lens. And finally, there is a 2 megapixel sensor with f2.4 aperture and it gets a macro lens. POCO X2 is priced much lower than the OnePlus 8, but it still gets 4 cameras on its back. Primary one being a 64 megapixel Sony IMX686 sensor with f1.9 aperture and 26mm lens. Next is the 8 megapixel sensor with f2.2 aperture and a 13mm ultra wide angle lens. Then there is a 2 megapixel sensor with f2.4 aperture and it gets a macro lens. And finally, there is another 2 megapixel sensor with f2.4 aperture, and this one is used for sensing depth information for portrait shots. OnePlus 8 can shoot 4K videos at up to 60 fps, while the POCO X2 can do it at 30 fps. OnePlus can shoot 1080p videos at 30, 60 and 240 fps, and POCO can take this at 30, 60 and 120 fps. POCO X2 can also shoot 960 fps super slow motion videos at 720p resolution. At the front, OnePlus 8 gets a 16 megapixel sensor with f2.0 aperture, while the POCO X2 gets 2 cameras at the front. Main one gets a 20 megapixel sensor with f2.2 aperture, and the second one gets a 2 megapixel depth sensor with f2.4 aperture. Interface of the camera app is pretty straightforward on both the phones, and they also give you a full-fledged Pro mode which gives you a better granular control over your images. If you want detailed look at this, I suggest you guys check out my dedicated camera reviews of both these phones. I will leave cards to them on the top right corner of the screen and also link them in the description section. Before we move on to the image and video samples, if you are new to this channel, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon next to it. That way, you won't miss out on any of the amazing videos coming up on this channel. Let us start with the daytime images. Both these phones have a very high resolution sensor, so there are no shortage of details in either of these images. In this set of images, one from the OnePlus 8 is a bit brighter and the POCO X2 seems to have added a bit more contrast to its image. But this is not consistent behavior from either of them. In the very next one, image from the POCO X2 is brighter and OnePlus 8 has a bit more contrast. So this keeps on changing from scene to scene. I would have liked to have a bit more consistent results from both of them. That being said, no matter if you are taking these images outdoors or indoors, there are plenty of details in both of them. OnePlus 8 has a flagship processor to back its images, but it is so nice to see the POCO X2 doing well in the comparison with a mid-range processor. Colors look good from both the phones. You won't notice it when you look at POCO X2's images alone, but when we compare it with the ones from the OnePlus 8, there is a slight green tint in POCO's images. Other than that, these images look really good. If I had to choose between these two, I would say OnePlus 8 is showing more natural looking colors. But color is a personal choice, so which one of these you choose depends on your liking. In some of the shots like this, POCO added a lot more contrast, making the shadows appear too dark. It was the same in this image. Shadows appear a bit dark in the image from the POCO X2, while the OnePlus 8 did very well to bring those up. OnePlus does better when a situation demands for a better dynamic range. It brings up more details from the shadows while keeping the highlights in check. Look at these images. OnePlus brought back so much information from the shadows, while the shadows in POCO X2's image barely has any details. While the POCO X2 is not too bad for its price, dynamic range on the OnePlus 8 is clearly better. These were 12 and 16 megapixel images from the OnePlus 8 and the POCO X2 respectively. Both the phones offer you the option to take high resolution images. And here are how the 48 megapixel images from the OnePlus 8 look against the 64 megapixel images from the POCO X2. If we zoom in, we see the images from the POCO X2 being much detailed and sharper compared to the ones from the OnePlus 8. These high resolution images have slightly more details than their respective pixel bin ones, but only in bright lighting conditions. And you need to zoom in 5 to 6 times to see this difference. High resolution images are also much larger in file size and they also don't show the best dynamic range. So my suggestion is to always stick with the default 12 and 16 megapixel mode on the OnePlus 8 and the POCO X2 respectively. But for some reason, if you absolutely need these high resolution images, ones from the POCO X2 are sharper and they have more details in them. We have seen this image before, and this is how the primary camera sees the scene. And this is how much more of the scene the wide lens on both these phones lets you get in the shot. It is so nice to have this wide lens as it gives us a completely different perspective of the scene. Now the one on the POCO X2 is a millimeter wider, so it gives us a slightly wider field of view compared to the OnePlus 8. There is a shift in color temperature and white balance when we switch from the normal to wide lens on both these phones. Not only that, these wide shots are not as detailed or sharp as the primary ones. This is much more apparent when we are trying to take these shots indoors or of some nearby objects. But it becomes less apparent when we are trying to take images outside like this. Out of the two, wide camera on the OnePlus 8 is much sharper. Here is a quick focusing test before we head over to the close-up and macro shots. Both are quick at changing the focus from near to far object, but the OnePlus 8 is a few milliseconds faster. Change in its focus is also smoother compared to the POCO X2. This might not matter a lot while taking images, but when you're shooting videos, it looks much more pleasing compared to an abrupt shift in focus. The actual close-up shot turned out really good from both. As we saw, OnePlus is a bit faster at setting the focus for these shots, and the POCO X2 sometimes takes a couple of attempts to get it right. Once the focus is set, subject is very sharp in the close-ups from both, and thanks to a wide aperture and a large sensor, background gets a nice optical blur. For all these close-up shots, ones from the POCO X2 are a bit warmer, while the ones from the OnePlus 8 are showing cooler color tones. These phones can also take macro shots, but since both get a measly 2 megapixel sensor for this camera, these images are not very good from either of them. But you can get much more closer to the subject on the POCO X2, so in comparison, its images are looking good. You need plenty of light for taking these images, else they will be filled with noise and the whole image will look really grainy. Like I said in my OnePlus 8's camera review, you can take much better and detailed images by digitally zooming in with the main sensor. Try it out. Coming to the portrait shots. You might have heard me say this countless number of times by now, that this is my favorite mode to shoot in on any smartphone. Portrait mode on these phones make your images stand out, and they also make them look a lot more professional. Both these phones are amazing at detecting the edges and accurately separating the subject from the background. But just look at the dynamic range in the portraits from the OnePlus 8. It handles the bright background in such an amazing way, while the POCO X2 completely blows it. This is the first instance in this comparison where we saw the POCO X2 fall noticeably behind. That being said, it still takes amazing portrait shots when the background is not too bright. It also gets the movie mode, which lets you take 21:9 portrait shots with black bars at the top and bottom, giving these images a cinematic look. We don't get this mode on the OnePlus 8. You can take portraits of objects on both, and in most cases, the edge detection is equally good on both. While taking portraits of objects, quite a few times, OnePlus 8 just won't blur the background. I don't know if it is a glitch or something, but it has happened on a few occasions since the latest software update. If it's a widespread issue, hopefully OnePlus is working on fixing it with the next update. Even with this issue, for portraits, I would choose the OnePlus 8 because of the amazing dynamic range. Let us now move to the images that I took in indoors, artificial and lower lighting situations. This is where usually the lower priced phone starts falling behind. But as we saw in its dedicated camera review, POCO X2 has a very capable camera even in these situations. Objects are sharper in the OnePlus 8's images, and they also show less noise compared to the POCO X2. But in this shot, OnePlus 8 tried to cool the image down, whereas the actual colors of the light are as we see in POCO X2's image. OnePlus 8 gets optical image stabilization, so its sensor can capture light for a few extra milliseconds, which results in brighter images as we see in some of its shots. Again, the OnePlus 8 messed up the white balance in this shot. Actually, messed up is not the right word, because some people might actually prefer how the colors from the OnePlus 8 look. It's just that I prefer my phones to capture the colors as they really are. We start seeing bigger difference between these two as we move to even lower lighting conditions. Images from the POCO X2 don't have nearly as many details as the images from the OnePlus 8. And as I zoom in, we see the POCO X2's image is just filled with noise. It does get a night mode to help it take better images as the light gets even lower. And the night mode images do make a big difference. As you can see in the first look, with the night mode turned on, there isn't a big difference between these images. there is still more noise in POCO's images, but you can't tell that unless you zoom in and compare these images side by side. Some images from the POCO X2 are even brighter of the two, but the ones from the OnePlus 8 look so much better overall. So again, in lower light, OnePlus 8 is a clear winner. That brings us to the front-facing cameras. I think OnePlus really needs to work on its selfie camera because its selfies don't really feel like they were taken with a 16 megapixel sensor. Ones from the POCO X2 have more details in them. I still like the skin tones that the OnePlus 8 captures, but overall for selfies, I would go with the POCO X2 because they are a lot detailed. There is a secondary depth sensor at the front of the POCO X2 to help it with portrait shots. I think it would have been much better if POCO spent that money in refining the dynamic range of the main camera for these shots. I like how sharp these portrait shots are from the POCO X2, but at the same time, I hate that it completely destroys the shots with the overblown highlights. And again, when the background is not too bright, POCO X2 does a better job with the details in the face, so I choose it for taking my portrait selfies as well. Here's a video from the front-facing camera of the OnePlus 8 and the POCO X2. You can see how both of them are handling the overall colors of the scene, exposure and stabilization when I'm walking around with them. It is also pretty noisy out here, so let me know in the comments which one of these is handling my voice better. 4K videos are stabilized on both, but POCO X2 can only shoot them at 30 fps, where the OnePlus 8 can shoot them at 60 fps. Videos from POCO X2 are really good for the price, but the ones from the OnePlus 8 look better and they capture more details because they have a higher bitrate. Slow motion videos also look better from the OnePlus 8, both the 1080p and 720p ones. But if you want to shoot super slow motion videos, POCO X2 is the only one that allows you to shoot 960 fps videos at 720p right now. So after looking at over 90 image and video samples in various lighting conditions, we have a fairly good idea that which one of these has a better set of cameras. In bright daylight, there is very little difference between the images from both these phones, which in itself is a big win for the POCO X2 because it costs less than half as much as the OnePlus 8. It falls way behind in the dynamic range when it comes to taking portrait shots, and its overall low light performance is not up to the level of the OnePlus 8. But that doesn't mean it is bad at taking these images. If we look at its images alone, they look really good for a phone that starts at under 20,000 rupees. Videos are better from the OnePlus 8. But again, POCO X2 gives the best video out of any phone that is priced under 20,000 rupees. If you are trying to decide between these two phones, and if you have the extra money, you should definitely go with the OnePlus 8. But if you just can't stretch your budget beyond 20,000 rupees, POCO X2 is your best option and you won't be disappointed when it comes to its cameras. What do you think about the cameras on these phones? OnePlus 8 costs twice as much as the POCO X2, so do you think its images were 2 times as good? Let me know in the comments. And as always, if you don't agree with my analysis of these images, you can go back to the start, mute the video, watch it in the highest resolution that you can on the biggest display that you own, and draw your own conclusions that way. If you are planning on getting any of these phones, I will really appreciate if you get it from the affiliate links in the description section. That is it for this video, guys. Please hit the like button if you enjoyed this video and subscribe to the channel for more quality tech videos like this. You can also check out some of the other videos from this channel. This has been Sagar and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care.